The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Film Foundations, the collaborative show between Weirding Way Media and Someone's Favorite Productions. I am your co-host, Ryan Verrill, from the Disconnected and Someone's Favorite Productions.
And I'm your other co-host, Chris Dashy from Weirding Way Media. But if I were to tell you the other places I'm from, it would be much too vulgar a display of power for this medium.
Well, speaking of that, on this show, we ask and answer 4 questions about a given topic that is surrounding either an actor, director, franchise, or like tonight's topic, a micro-genre. And our job is to entice you to broaden your horizons on film, encourage you to travel down film tangents and side roads, and perhaps go to festivals in Norway that you may never have traveled down otherwise. Because tonight, we have on the show Chris Haskell from They Live by Film, and we are discussing controversial films of faith. Chris, thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you so much for the invitation. Welcome. Pleasure to meet you all.
Praise be. Start the proselytizing, baby. Let's go. We're essentially painting a target on our fucking foreheads with this episode and saying, hey, not only is it controversial films of faith, but you're probably going to be offended by some of the things we say because it may not be what you agree with. So just getting out in front of it now is what I'm trying to say.
Trigger warnings.
Yeah, well, we don't have to go that far. Our audience isn't that young,
So, Chris, before we get into the crazy divisional topics, can you tell everybody what They Live by Film is and why they should be listening to it?
Thanks so much for asking. Yeah, we're kind of I guess I've started to refer to us as a hobby podcast, but we hope to find some like-minded hobbyists that just basically love hearing about films. We're just finishing up the filmography of Lars von Trier as we talk, going through every single one of his movies.
What a positive experience that must have been.
Oh, just so delightful, man. Every single one of those.
Did you watch Princess Bride 2 at the end of it when you were done? You're just like, I need, or did you continue to just go further down into the hole? Because man, that is a hell of a topic to pick for a show.
It's funny you say that because when we're watching Antichrist, I thought I was watching Princess Bride 2. They're so similar.
Right? It was the genital cutting off that did it for me.
No,
it's inconceivable.
Yeah, it's inconceivable.
Anybody want the peanut? Anybody want the penis? Is what it would actually be. Yeah.
Oh shit. That's hilarious. Yeah, we're actually recording that episode. Well, I guess this is probably coming out in 2026 at this point, but we're recording that episode a few days after we record this one. So it'll be interesting to talk about that movie because wow. But no, we did Kubrick before that. We try to basically the whole theme of the episode is we all have different tastes, and we force the other two co-hosts to watch something that we like, and we discuss whether or not it's good. And then the other half of the podcast is kind of just talking to people in the industry, so people in the boutique Blu-ray community, which I'm a collector, so I just talking to other collectors and people that make the stuff I collect. So that's They Live by Film. Yeah, I can't believe it's been almost 150 episodes in 3 years, and just it's fun. Yeah, we have a good time.
That's pretty good. 50 episodes a year is pretty good. That's good. That's good output, man.
Thanks. Yeah,
that's consistency, as they would say. I mean, hey, as someone who's spent the last decade doing podcasting, the one thing I always say to anybody is fucking be consistent. Just find a thing that works for you and post it out as often as you say you're going to. It seems to work out. And then you have 3 weekly podcasts and you wonder, what the fuck are you doing with your life?
Too much consistency.
Yeah, the consistency is just off the charts, really. So. And then you find someone like Ryan has the same problem of once we do something, we have to be consistent. And now it's a weekly show.
Yeah. Ryan's working on his 9th full-time podcast.
Yeah, boy. 9th. I remember when mine was still single digits. God.
That was like the podcast version of I remember my first beer.
It kind of feels like it in a way at this point. God.
They Live by Film is one of my favorite personal podcasts, and I love it so much. It's on my podcast network, so I'm thrilled to have you guys. And I've had all 3 of you on my channel multiple times. I have been on your show multiple times. It's just a love fest. You guys are amazing. But tonight we have a different kind of love fest.
Speaking of love fest,
Let's go.
I had that transition built in. We're not, obviously with what we're talking about tonight. We're not talking about transitions, but with controversial films of faith, what brought on wanting to discuss that?
Okay, so
fucking goddamn it!
I saw Last Temptation of Christ. Again, let's just say, a couple years back. And I grew up a Christian. I have a complicated relationship with faith. I'm pretty far from my roots. But I saw it and I was like, what is the controversy here? Like, this is a movie that was so reviled when it came out. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, I don't think they actually saw it all the way to the end. Like if you actually see this movie to the end, it's just sort of like a beautiful story told by a guy who's a, pronounced Catholic. So I started wondering if there's other movies that are controversial for reasons they shouldn't be. And then also wanted to just generally talk about controversial films on faith because, we at least in America, we talk about the thin skin on Muslims, but let's be real. Christians have some thin skin, man.
What? Yeah. Wait a second. Are you telling me that a group of people who are in no way, shape, or form should feel marginalized, constantly feel marginalized? Wait a second. Hold on.
Yeah, made up of mostly white people.
The most marginalized group of people on the planet. Clearly, white men even. I mean, can you imagine if they were all based on the tenets of a white guy? Jesus Christ. Literally.
Literally in this case. So yeah, I thought it'd be interesting discussion because, we tend to say, I don't tend to look at film as a religious thing. Like when I go into it, I'm not looking to have a religious experience. So I'm always interested when people take a stab at either the faith of their childhood or the complications of growing up and not believing the same way, or we'll talk about some of the ones we might talk about, what about the faith of a Jewish guy making the story in the Old Testament who got a lot of shit for including texts that weren't part of the Torah. So anyways, there's just some interesting stuff in here that I feel like we're kind of in that generation as a country where most of us are leaving the church. There's still a few that are a part of it, but this is all part of our childhood. We have this legacy of Christianity, and as we flee, it's still there in the back of our mind, right? So I thought it might be kind of an interesting discussion, and so far, based on the emails back and forth, y'all agree. So as you could do with it.
Well, and to be fair, you gave us what I would consider to be the best email ever, which is you let us know exactly what we're doing. It's I'm going to answer the questions. We're like, oh my God. This is he's ahead of he's far out ahead. He's further out ahead than even we are at this point.
We can have a separate conversation about my attention to detail, but yes, I'm glad you got some of that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. The conversation is he has a lot, folks. There you go, which is a good thing.
One thing I kind of wanted to do before we got into the history behind the subject, the word that sticks out the most from this topic idea, obviously there's 2 main words, but the first one, we really should talk about controversial. So since we are going through you, what does controversial mean for most of these films?
There have, outside of, again, like I don't mean to make this about like Muslims versus Christian, but there's this perception that like, we have to be scared of the Muslims, right? But nobody's received more death threats than people that have offended the Catholic Church, right? Like they get their troops rallied, and there's some funny stories, like Kevin Smith protesting his own movie, right? Like there's some funny stories in here, and there's some stories that are not so funny, where the church has really rallied their people and like really threatened folks. And so I think for me, there's something I want to talk about here in a minute, which is one of the best names probably ever for a group called the Legion of Decency. We'll get into that in just a second. But, there's like a formal effort around telling the church community, like, is this a controversial movie or not? So there's a group of people that are deciding that, which, well, they stopped now, but they were deciding that up till the mid 80s, which I just think is hilarious and kind of wild and speaks to the control, that they try to take over their population. But yeah, I mean, to me, controversy is just like it's a movie that comes out where I'm assuming that the majority of people that have something to say about it have not seen it and are just simply responding to like being prompted to like hate a specific thing about it, where one, usually dude has an opinion that is based off of maybe possibly him not even seeing it. And then there's just like this groundswell of hatred towards it. So
wait, are you telling me? Now, let's just theoretically here. 2016's Ghostbusters, a movie with a female-led cast.
Sure.
You're telling me that it's not a bad movie because it's led by women? Wait a second here. Hold on. It's a bad movie because it's criminally unfunny and spends way too much time doing a lot of hand-waving with, I guess what we might call improv, but improv tends to be funny, and that movie is not. That, to your point about controversy, that kind of controversy is horseshit.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the kind of controversy we're talking about here. That is, in a lot of ways, I don't want to say fake controversy, but it does kind of feel concocted, because I kind of still believe that Sony knew it was going to be a bad movie and tried to find any way for people to rally behind it, even if that is like, it's men versus women. It's like, that's not a thing, guys. And
gets butts in seats.
Yeah, exactly. But that's not the kind of controversy we're talking about. I just want to like clarify, because like you've kind of alluded to, like, we're talking about things where like filmmakers are getting death threats,
right?
Stuff like that. Because because the Catholic Church doesn't have a sense of humor, is what it is. It's really, they don't know how to laugh about themselves. Like, okay.
Not known for their improv abilities.
No. Spotlight, hell of a comedy though.
A romp.
Yeah, truly, like it's really up there with like Caddyshack and Annie Hall in terms of contemporary comedy classics.
It's fucking Spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, when a movie like Spotlight came out, it wasn't as controversial as Last Temptation of Christ was. Like, and it should have been, because it's actually talking about something that is a real problem. And instead, we want to get bogged down in fictional stories about fictional people that may or may not have existed being told a certain way by a certain director.
So how does Film Foundations feel about tangents? Are you pro or anti-tangents?
Well, this is a show that survives on tangents.
Okay, so I got into my parents don't listen to this show. So I got into a big debate with them because they really, my mom was raised Catholic, and she wanted my son to go to a Catholic school. And I was like, why would we even know? Like, we're not even talking about this. Like, why are we even like, why is this even a conversation? Like, no. And she was like, why? And I was like, because they publicly stated that 5% of the Catholic Church rapes boys. And like
and they're okay with that.
And they're okay with that. Like, they're not saying that 5% of those men get fired. They like move them around, and like they're still there. Like, no, like, I'm sorry, like, there's no chance that my son is going to a Catholic school.
There's a reasonable percentage of rat shit in every Snickers bar, guys. Come on, we're operating on the same kind of logic here with human lives, no less, right? 5%. I mean, I think with the Boy Scouts of America, it's even higher. And that's even less talked about. And on top of everything else, the Boy Scouts integrates the religious part into it, because most religious organizations, read that as churches, synagogues, mosques, have some sort of Boy Scout organization associated with them. I know mine was. I wasn't part of that percentage, thank fucking God, but I do know people that were. And to your point, like, if I had a kid, I would not let them be in the Boy Scouts. No fucking way. Like,
It's too risky, right? So,
yeah, fuck no. I don't know what other people are up to.
yeah. So, anyways, what are we talking about? Catholics? Yeah. So there's Catholics are bad at improv. The priests are bad at improv. I'm sure members of the Catholic Church are good at it, but priests are generally bad at improv. Not funny. Yeah, no, I think I'm good with that pitch. I mean, I just think there's an interesting conversation for me around reacting to something. Like, even take a dumb example. I saw Barbie. Finally saw, like, I didn't see it in theater because I had kind of low interest in seeing it. I finally saw it on a plane, and I was like,
what a white man statement. What a white man. I didn't want to see it in theaters, so I watched it on an airplane. I'm kidding.
Sorry. Yeah, I travel a lot. I guess
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Just the way you said it, was like, I had no interest in, like, fuck it. Like, it was hilarious.
I served a meal for my private chef, and my private was like, no.
Wow.
No. But I remember
he lives in downtown Austin.
Yeah, Zaslav over here. Jesus Christ! And then the guy I used as my footrest had to move out of the way so I could eat my dinner on top of him as a table, no less.
I remember watching that movie being like, where the hell is the controversy? Like, this is a movie about, like, girls can be whatever they want to be. Like, this is fine. Like, what? So I'm just assuming that nobody that was pissed at that movie saw it, which that sucks, right? Because, like, there's kind of like an endemic here, like this thing that keeps happening. And so anyways, that's what I hope we kind of tap into if we get going on this, like, is just this idea that, like, stuff is controversial probably for no reason. And, like, if you get to the root of something or the intent of something, usually there's a reason why. Even something as crazy as Jodorowsky, which I don't think we're going to get into tonight, but we can. But even if something as crazy as him, like, he's a sincere dude who's, like, wrestling with Catholicism, and his stuff is not meant to be controversial. He's just trying to put shit out there and, like, get conversation going, right? So anyways, he's
externalizing the internal conversation he's having with himself. I mean, you're Paul Schrader's entire body of work is pretty much that. I mean, right? Is it not? Like, it really is. Like, he's pretty much having an external conversation about grappling with his own faith. So, yeah. I hope that, if anything, we just offend as many people as possible with this episode by continuing to be ourselves, which is not anything that's ever going to change. So if we offend you, know that we're not doing it intentionally. This is just the way that we are. I'm just getting out in front of it.
I poured a double, maybe 2.5, and it's empty. So I'm feeling, I wouldn't say I'm feeling tipsy, but I'm feeling loose and relaxed and ready to talk. So I'm open.
Well, and the other thing we probably should lay out, it's not just Catholics. There are going to be other faiths that we're going to talk about tonight.
Ryan.
There's plenty of films that have been made for this, because in reality, one of the reasons why this subgenre is going to hit home for a lot of people is it's fucking relatable. Like, a lot of us were raised in some form of spirituality. And based on the ages of people that are going to be listening to this, you were either raised in a super religious house, or your parents were, and they trickled some of that down to you a little bit, or you have some sort of tangential relation to that. And based on that, you're going to understand why some of these are controversial, even though on the surface, they may not seem controversial at all. And so we're going to discuss some of that. We're going to go into that. Chris, you want to share any history on this subgenre of choice? Anything that stuck out to you that you want to share? Any trivia?
The most interesting thing as I dug into this, because this is not a genre of, like, Jolly or something, right? Where there's sort of, like, tomes written on this sort of subgenre or something, right? Like, this is like my opinion on, movies I've seen where I was like, this is not as controversial as it should be. And, like, my intent to bring nuance back into film discussion, or just discussion in general. And so the most interesting thing I could come up with was this Legion of Decency, which was something started from the Catholic Church in 1933, and they first started publishing ratings in 1936. It ran into the 80s, and they put a rating on 16,000 movies over the course of their life. And it was basically 3 ratings. Up until the 70s, it was A, B, or C. C meaning, like, condemned, and A meaning it was okay for Christian Catholics, and B meaning it was like, kind of okay.
It's right in the line, folks.
It's all right only for people that are baptized and condemned.
Right. The unbaptized, as we call them.
Comes up in confession, but you can watch it. The interesting thing as I was digging through this is 1936, the first year they started putting this out, and then for like 4 years following, there were a shocking number of exploitation movies that dealt with prostitution. Like there was a lot of films that I haven't heard of. So it kind of made me want to go on like a tangent of just like seeing what was coming out in 1936 around like an exploitation movie around prostitution. Because I hadn't heard of any of the movies, but they were basically, there was some, like pervy dude, probably just like one of us, that was like in all these theaters and happened to be Catholic. That was like, no, condemned. And there's just like going to watch more pornography. And it was like, oh, condemned. There's like 5 penises in this movie, like condemned, And
I gotta stay for the whole run of the movie too. Really? God, what a shame this is.
I know. So there was the whole like job in the Catholic Church of just watching like, really super awesome movies and being like, no. A good Catholic family shouldn't watch this. So they disbanded in the 80s. They were called something else. They had like a Catholic Motion Picture Association or something. They had like a different name. And they changed it from the B and the C went away and it was either A or O. So basically it became just like every discourse, it became like, bifurcated, right? It was either like one or the other. And O meant you shouldn't watch it. A meant it was okay. And
what did EI mean?
And then O again at the end.
Yeah, I mean, this is just so fucking juvenile. It's shocking.
I was waiting to throw back out there that it was all right and oh no.
Yeah, God. Oh God, no.
But I think the legacy of that sort of lives on, right? Like I remember being in high school, liking dogma, being like identifying as a Christian, liking dogma and feeling guilty about it. And like as a 41-year-old now, I'm like, wow, like that movie's just great. Like it's interesting. Yeah. Like bringing Alanis Morissette in as God, like that was so offensive. But then like looking back at it now, it's just like, no, that was a super interesting way to portray this thing that has never really been tightly defined in that way. So anyways, there was no nuance at that discussion when I was 16, and I wish there would have been, because that movie's awesome. I liked it, and I felt guilty about it for like 10 years until finally I was like, wait a minute, I don't need to feel guilty about this. That's crazy. Like this movie's great. So that's what I hope to, I don't know, kind of get into here over time. And I guess you asked about history. That was the most interesting piece of history I could really find. This is not an official genre, an official subgenre, until we decided to get down and write a book on it with the three of us. Like this is no book on this. This is just hopefully going to bring some nuance into film discussion and maybe tap into some deep subconscious that people haven't dealt with in years, and will be cathartic, I hope.
Chris doesn't know that when things are mentioned like this around me, they tend to actually happen, which is not my problem anymore. Now it's yours. I do think it's funny, though, you mentioned the Legion of Decency, which I think was what the Legion of Boom was before Hawk joined Animal. But
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, right. It does. But what's funny is we have our own board of censorship that everybody is seemingly okay with as it is already, True. Which is the MPAA. And True. They have their own intricacies of that system, which literally doesn't allow NC-17 movies to be advertised or shown right. in most theaters. And that's, I mean, it's just censorship on top of censorship on top of censorship. And right. for people like ourselves who spend a hell of a lot of time consuming media, the last thing I want is someone else telling me what I can and can't fucking watch, because right. that's a one-way ticket to a very bad conversation that I'm going to have with you, because I don't appreciate it and nobody else should either. Right. And when religious organizations start inserting themselves in the conversation, it's like, look, the MPAA can go fuck themselves, and now you guys can go fuck yourselves double because you have an agenda behind it on top of everything else. The MPAA is not intended to have an agenda, but they end up having one anyways. So that's why they could only go fuck themselves once, doubly for anything else, because, again, they're just doing it from this misplaced sense of morality or authority, or a combination of the two. And
even the audacity to say they know what's best for the families that they are like representing, right? Which is just a crazy idea. No, in fact, this is not related to the topic tonight, but there's a really interesting documentary about the MPAA. Have y'all seen it? Right? Yeah. So secretive, like it's crazy. Like, and they're just pretty regular people. It's like, wow, they're deciding so much.
Just because they can.
Yeah.
I love that we're going to be talking about this tonight. I love that this is going to be in our feed forever because this is such an interesting concept. And I mean, there's so many different tangents that you could go down with this. I could easily see us doing a couple more of these in the future versus some others, but like we're not even going to get into. I think it's Mormons that primarily use. If either of you are familiar, the software VidAngel.
Yes,
So fucking weird.
Hey, they showed Pinocchio having a thong in Shrek 2. That's inappropriate. We got to edit it out of the movie. You guys are literally fucking with the movies now. Like back the fuck off for real.
Wait,
like,
did they are they allowed to continue? Because there was a period in time where they weren't allowed to continue. But are they back?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Oh wow, that's crazy. There's
another group of people that have no sense of humor.
Oh my god. Have you all ever heard? Well, I don't want to get into Mormon bashing, but have you all heard of this new trend where you can put the penis inside the vagina and then a friend jumps on the bed?
Not a new trend at all.
It's not a new trend, baby.
No,
Soaking's been around for a long time.
Been around for a long time.
Soaking. We're soaking.
Soaking. Oh my god, it's amazing.
I mean, hey, if you're gonna somehow confuse God and that you're not having sex, isn't it weirder for most people to have a third person in the bedroom with you? Not everybody's like me. And is a pervert and is okay with it. Like plenty of people be like, oh, so God's okay with you having somebody jump on the bed to hump somebody else? Like, seems like it's more problematic. They know what they're doing. It's soaking. Another group of people that have no sense of humor, but hey, they like to drink soda with cream in it, so that's a thing.
If you do soaking like 5 times, do you get upgraded to being called a super soaker?
Wow. Thanks, Dad.
Can we say that on the air?
Anyways, this is the perfect time to get into our first question because, man, we are off the rails, and I love it.
Boy.
So Chris, Rich Texas Chris, not Crustaceo. Mr. Haskell, what do you think is what you would say is the foundational title for this subject tonight? What is the first one that if somebody's never felt like they've watched a controversial film of faith, what should they watch first?
So, I'm sure someone who is like actually knowledgeable of film history is going to come back and refute this. The earliest one that I've seen is a Danish film. You know, Denmark is an interesting country because they're extremely atheist now, but they have a very strong history of Christianity, but specifically, what's the one? I'll think of the name here in a second. It's like a sect of Christianity. They're very strong. It comes from Denmark and Sweden. But there's a guy named Carl Theodor Dreyer who made a bunch of movies, most famously Passion of Joan of Arc. But he made a movie about faith, which is called Ordet. And I think it translates to just like the word or something. But I loved it because it's a scathing critique on the different disciplines of Christianity bickering over bullshit, like not important stuff. And the movie, it doesn't matter if we talk about spoilers, right? This is not like, this is like the movie ends with an actual miracle. Like there's a woman who dies and one of their crazy sons who's sort of like in the loony bin, kind of like he's off the rails, neurodivergent individual, believes he's Jesus Christ. And they spend the movie kind of dismissing him. I don't want to say openly making fun of him, but certainly dismissive of him. He comes back to the house, performs an actual miracle. And you have this moment in the film where you have to reconcile with the fact that like everybody that's been bickering over non-important stuff is not able to pull off a miracle. And here's somebody who's like pulling off miracles and actually bringing somebody back from the dead. And like, how do you reconcile that? And I like it because it's calling out the hypocrisy that's in the church community and in like the discussion of faith and like the discussion of theology. And you know, the idea, at least as a child, I remember the beauty of Christianity and I'm sure Islam and I'm sure Judaism, the beauty of these faiths is you help people and you love people and you're kind. Like there's these ideals that you learn when you're like 7 that are like beautiful. right? And you kind of like God is loving, and like you like, and so it's cool because as you get older, like you learn that that's not what happens inside of these church bodies. So here's this guy coming around in the 40s and calling it out, being like, y'all are so busy just bickering, you're missing a like actual miracle, and nobody knows what to do with it. And even as the audience, you don't know what to do with it because you're just like, well, was that real? Like that, and they leave it open. They don't answer that question. So I love it. And I think that was one of the earliest examples I could think of somebody who is openly negotiating his own faith and like working through his own faith and his own complications, getting to a point of being hypercritical of it, but having that background and so sort of like calling out people, right? And being like, this is what you look like. And I think it's a really great film. So,
wow, it's a lot. I think all of these are going to be a heavy discussion tonight. This and one other cool thing about The Passion of Joan of Arc, we should probably bring up the story of why we even can see the film. Do you remember that, Chris? Do you want to share that?
Oh, you mean how it got discovered in somebody's like garage or attic?
It was in a closet in a mental hospital, basically, Europe, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Beautiful.
All of the film elements were just sitting in a closet.
It's
fully restored. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's kind of like, I know we've been joking a lot. I'm happy to go back to that, but that's kind of like the thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about this topic was, movies like that sort of you watch and you're just like, oh yeah, like this is somebody who's like angry at the church or maybe their childhood or maybe like something that in their past, but they're so intellectual about the way that they're approaching it and like, and it requires a discussion afterwards of like talking through it and figuring out what just happened. And so those are the kind of ones that I really, really love. There's a bunch more that we can get into, but that was the earliest one for me that kind of jumped out like that.
Chris, any thoughts?
I haven't seen it, but I mean, sounds like it's in terms of being right up my alley. I think it would be obviously any movie that's willing to have those kind of uncomfortable conversations out loud. Because I mean, yeah, questioning your own faith is something that people struggle with internally, let alone trying to externalize it. Like,
right.
Yeah. So it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do internally, and it's even harder to do it externally. It's even harder to do it externally that allows other people to resonate with it. Like, how many humps, how many hoops have you jumped through at that point to be successful? It's a lot.
Yeah.
This topic alone is going to be difficult to just come to one of these to watch first, because really it can be a vibe thing. It can be, what are you familiar with? What type of genres are you already into? What is your background with faith? That might dictate what is more appealing to you to watch first. And I think Passion of Joan of Arc is a great choice. I also see how you could make the argument for Dogma easily. This is what I was going to say is Dogma is sort of the quintessential one from the last 25 years that people have grabbed onto for just the weirdest of reasons. Like the fact that this movie was picketed to begin with is so stupid. It is so funny that we have a movie where Alanis Morissette plays God, and you want to picket this movie as if it's actually impacting your faith. Like, there's so many issues on the face of that, let alone the fact that you're taking it that seriously that you organize in response to it.
To me, Dogma is a great example of one that I bet none of them saw.
Right.
They wouldn't have picketed it if they had seen it.
No.
Right.
Nah. It's harmless. Like, there's a poop monster in it.
It's one of the best parts of the entire movie.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, the movie's fine.
I mean, to think that they spent their time picketing the movie with the shit monster is the funniest part. I mean, it is.
Yeah. Like, what 12-year-old kid is watching that being like, I'm questioning everything? Like, no, it's like dick and fart jokes, and it's funny, and like, or dick and poop jokes in this case. And every guy probably had a crush on every heterosexual male probably had a crush on was it Selma Hayek or that was the stripper?
Yeah, I mean, I had a crush on Linda Fiorentino, but what do I know?
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
Wrestling with her faith.
And hey, didn't she work at an abortion clinic? Isn't that was the thing about the movie that really made them Catholics mad.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, that and the fact that it was Jay and Silent Bob saying every terrible thing known to man. So they already don't like Kevin Smith's movies. Like, what the fuck do they think's going to happen if he makes a religious movie? Right. Oh, we love this movie. This is for us. Like, couldn't be further from the fucking truth.
But typical Kevin Smith, the movie opens, it opens. Anyways, one of the early scenes is Ben Affleck and Matt Damon arguing with a nun and convincing her that God's not real.
Yep.
I believe that is the opening of the movie.
Yeah, it is, right? Even though they met God. So yeah, it's that kind of movie. Like, it's funny.
Yeah.
And then he waits 13 or 14 years and makes another religious movie that pisses people off. So
yeah,
I just love that guy.
Zach and Miri make a porno?
I was getting at Red State, but yeah, people were saying, "Oh God," on both of them.
Is your answer Dogma, Ryan?
My answer is Dogma. I think it's the cast alone makes this super approachable for people, and I think it's like it's kind of like a warm hug of a controversial film because again, on the surface, there's no reason this should be controversial. But the fun thing is it does lead to discussions about faith. There's lots of stuff in this that is rooted in real beliefs, in the real tenets of these churches. And when you have people like Matt Damon and Ben Affleck and people that we've loved seeing for years in music and film and Alan Rickman, like there's so much that you can relate to and go, oh, like that's Snape. Let's just sit down and have a discussion about this because I like this actor and the stuff that they talked about. It hit home a little bit, and maybe the way I was raised. Let's discuss on why that felt like sort of blasphemic. That's not a word.
Blasphemitis.
Blasphemer.
I had a case of that last week. So it's it is something that can lead to great discussions, and that's absolutely why I would pick this one. What about you, Mr. Statue?
So I didn't pick either one of these. First off, other Chris, never even heard of it. Ryan, I kind of wondered if you had picked Dogma. I picked a movie that I consider to be a perfect movie. We did an episode on it on the Culture Cast a couple of years ago. I want to say 2019, 2020. The movie is still banned in Finland, or was up until 2001. Like I said, I genuinely consider this to be a perfect movie. It's controversial about faith, I guess. I mean, it's controversial about a lot of things, but Ken Russell's The Devils. I think for me is kind of, it checks all the boxes because A, it's an Oliver Reed movie, and who doesn't love a guy who has a tattoo of falcon talons on the tip of his dick? I mean, really, who doesn't? First off, speaking of controversial, Oliver Reed alone is a controversial human being. But the movie talks about faith and the use of faith and how faith can be used against people, especially, and like you kind of already talked about, Chris, within the church itself, using it, circling back on itself and using the tools within the church to deal with people within the church you don't personally agree with, or that are not pushing the message in the direction that you want it to go. So The Devils kind of talks a little bit about that, but I mean, ultimately, it's a movie that talks about a lot of things. I mean, sexual repression is one of them because Vanessa Redgrave's character at one point masturbates with Oliver Reed's femur, at least in the uncut version of the movie. Oliver Reed was cut from what I've heard, though. And I mean, I think, Ken Russell would have approved of that joke. I've seen Listomania. There's enough wieners in that movie to stack end on end to the moon. But something like The Devils, I think, kind of straddles a line between being entertaining, a story worth telling, performances worth talking about, because Ken Russell knows how to get the best out of Oliver Reed and Vanessa Redgrave. I think it's my favorite thing I've seen Oliver Reed in, personally. Will Dodson is shaking his head somewhere about Oliver Twist, but Oliver Reed in The Devils is genuinely one of the best parts of the movie. And again, what the movie is talking about and the usage of religion on the people within the church, I think, is just as interesting a conversation to have as the one that Dogma has, or the one that the film you were talking about has, Chris, which is exteriorly how is religion being consumed and used by people. But I think for me, a more personally interesting conversation is the corruption within the church and how that plays out amongst itself, because nothing I love more than leopards eating their own fucking faces, as it were. And The Devils is a great example of this is what happens when religion is used against religious people for negative consequences. Because if you can't guess, Oliver Reed's character doesn't make it to the final reel if somebody's masturbating with his femur. So again, it's a hard movie to watch too. There's a lot going on. I don't want to say it's a fun, upbeat movie. It's not. That's the other thing. It's a downer of a movie compared to Dogma.
Have you seen the version where they have the rape of Christ scene?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't seen that. Yeah, is it?
I mean, again, in a movie that's already kind of out there, it's just one more drop in the bucket of Ken Russell's stuff, Yeah. And there were other things that I wanted to answer here, but this is kind of the thing that when I kept thinking about it, and as we approached the evening of this recording, I was like, that's kind of the thing that for me stands out, because I don't think it's controversial. I think to go further into the idea that you were getting at, which I don't think necessarily all of our ideas had to check the box of not actually controversial, but this one does check that box. This is not really that controversial, and the fact that it's still really hard to get a hold of is another thing that I think bears mentioning, because it's still really hard to get an unrated version of the movie. Damn near impossible. I'm not even sure there is one available easily.
Not a legal way, no.
Yeah, so there you go, which in and of itself, that level of censorship and oppression should speak volumes to the content of the movie contained within.
Right.
What's funny, too, is I completely agree with you. Obviously, it's not that controversial. But the funny thing is, when you try to explain how controversial it is, you could just say it's directed by Ken Russell, and that explains enough. He's an out there surrealist director. That's sort of what you get with everything with him.
Yeah, pretty much. Again, if you watch it expecting it's going to be a straightforward, fun movie, you clearly haven't seen a lot of Ken Russell's stuff. So
he did. Wasn't he Lair of the White Worm? Wasn't that him as well?
Sure,
That's a good entry to Ken Russell.
Yeah.
Well, Horror definitely is not. I saw that movie. I still don't understand what the fucking point was. Other than it being a vehicle for that one guy to go, I want to fuck you in the ass, which is a funny line in and out of context, but the movie can't make it an hour and a half on that alone.
It's built up for
that. On that note, let's go over to our question 2 then, because I feel like this is where we're going to get the most in depth on this specific subgenre here. So, Mr. Haskell, could you recommend a lesser-known film within this brand new fake subgenre that we made up for tonight, which might not be a great first-time watch for somebody that could turn somebody away potentially, but still is a really great movie?
So I didn't realize that I had not seen Breaking the Waves from Lars von Trier in a long time. I saw it recently. Like I said, we're going through his movies on the podcast, and as we were talking about it and processing it, we had Celeste on that episode actually, which is she's always awesome. But as we were processing it, we're like, hold up, this is an allegory for the Christ figure, as told through basically somebody who's kind of skeptical, saying okay, Christians, you believe this stuff, but have you ever thought about what it's like to sacrifice for something all the way to the death? Have you ever thought about what that actually would look like? That's kind of fucked up. And so he just goes on this journey of a woman who kind of takes the role of the Christ figure from the Bible. And the movie is all about her believing that there's a bunch of backstory here, but her husband is paralyzed. and he wants her to have sex with other men, so like to feel it. She can't justify that because she's from a conservative, like religious background. So the way that she kind of does some mental gymnastics just to please her husband is that she starts to believe it's going to heal him. And like as the story goes on, he actually starts getting better. And as the movie sort of the big moment is he gets better, but it's at the ultimate sacrifice. And so it's this moment where you're like, wait, like you're watching the degradation of a human, and it's horrible and it's hard to watch. But from her perspective, it's this like beautiful act of sacrifice. So she's willing to go through anything for this act of sacrificing so that her husband can walk again. And it's confusing. And as you kind of start to unpack it, you're like, oh yeah, I think he's, and so anyway, so I did some research on the back of that episode, and it turns out that he is a sort of a Christian person who has like a complicated relationship with the church. And he does put a lot of Christian allegories into his movies. And so there's a good chance that that's what this actually is about, although he's never stated it officially. He's not the kind of director that's going to come out and say, like, here's the 5 steps of what my movie's about, you know. So I'm going to put Breaking the Waves as my choice of a movie that people don't talk about in this context. But I think as you really start to, like, digest what the movie's about, it becomes a super interesting look at, like, what it would be for a human to actually go through this type of sacrifice and how messed up it is. And it's like, it's not a glamorous thing. It's really hard to watch and it sucks. So that's my lesser known one.
Other Chris, have you seen Breaking the Waves?
I have not.
It's a great movie on top of it all. Like, I mean, it's like a, award winning type, but for a good reason. Like it's a good movie.
I've never seen it either. I've truthfully only seen probably just a few Lars von Trier films, and most of them in preparation for recording with you here soon. Other than that, yeah, it's not one that has been like on the forefront of conversations kind of anywhere. Not even just on this topic.
No, it took 40 minutes with. So luckily Celeste has a bigger brain than me, and we were just dissecting and we were like, hold up. And then as we started to go deeper into that analogy, a lot of stuff in the movie clicked. But yeah, so I'm claiming that as a faith film.
This is an interesting one, and one that I've been meaning to watch ever since this UK company Curzon put out the Lars von Trier set. I've been really wanting to dive through everything. It's just intimidating, obviously, and you guys are leading the way and putting it out there is something that's great to do, so I appreciate that. But yeah, this is, from what I hear, it's a great film. I'm eager to see it, and I wish I had more eloquent things to say about it. But Lars von Trier, I feel like you could kind of find that whole religious thing in literally pretty much everything he creates. It's just sort of this ongoing, underlying tone, at least, of where it's affecting the film that he's making.
Similar to Chris Sashu, if you can get past the extremely offensive words, you see a deep heart and someone who's a deep thinker. And no, I don't know. I was trying to make something work there, but no, I think Chris, I think I don't know how many films of his you've seen, but from the 48 minutes that I've known you now, I feel like you would like his movies because there's a ton of nuance in them. And I don't know about House that Jack built. I haven't seen that yet, so I'm bracing myself for that. But
I like that movie a fair amount, actually.
Awesome.
It's a masterpiece.
It's really good. I mean, you're a fucking monster for saying it's a masterpiece, Farrell. You know why? It's a hard movie to like. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
but good, right? But y'all are sitting here talking about how good it is.
Yeah. I feel like I could say you will enjoy it, but to make a blanket statement that everybody would enjoy it is not something I'm willing to do. It might be the most approachable of the Lars von Trier stuff I've seen in terms of like the conceit being imminently approachable. Like, it's a story about a serial killer. and we're talking to him directly. Like, that's kind of at the forefront of a lot of people's minds because everybody wants to be into that sick shit, with Jeffrey Dahmer. And it's like, for me, The House That Jack Built kind of is part and parcel with a whole host of like things that are just diving a little further into the human psyche than most people are probably comfortable with.
Yeah. I think I'll like it then.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, and I think it's like the best thing I've seen. Matt, is it Matt Dillon in that movie?
Yeah,
sure is.
Yeah, Kevin Dillon.
So
he's the delayed brother.
Von Trier has a movie called The Idiots that is very on theme for that joke, and it was probably the most uncomfortable 2 hours of my life. But we won't get into that right now. What about y'all? Did you come up with the title for the underappreciated one?
Look at you hosting. I love it. Mr. Stashu, you got an answer for us?
I do, and it's not something that either one of y'all are going to answer. I can guarantee you that, because neither one of y'all watch Indian cinema as much as I do. Nice. So I'm actually going to sit here and be a little bit of a self-advocate for Indian cinema. The film that came out in 2014, PK, which stars Amir Khan as an alien who comes to Earth and then tries to, because people keep telling him, go ask God for help and he'll help you. So he goes to Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, and I think at least one or two others. And then he starts essentially having openly the conversation about, everybody who claims that they can talk to God actually can't. And I'm not saying that I can, but they can't. And where that kind of, that's part and parcel with the movie. I would say that the movie's not necessarily super controversial. It's pretty controversial in India for reasons that our people in this country would find to be kind of, I don't know, passé. Like, he's naked on the poster, but he's holding a boombox in front of himself. That was a big problem. But the conversation the movie has about religion, I think, is an interesting one because, again, it's a movie made in India for a culture that is relatively conservative. Right now, the regime that's in charge, I would use the regime because they're rather oppressive. But similarly to our country, there are plenty of Hindus and other people who live in India that are falling out with their faith, just like people here are. And PK is kind of having that conversation of what does it look like to be spiritual without the religious part of it? Okay. And I don't know. It's also a good movie. Amir Khan's great. And I think more people should watch Indian cinema. And last time I checked, it's on Netflix. And I'm an advocate for Indian cinema because I think everybody should be able to enjoy films from all over the place, and subtitles should not be a barrier to entry. But I understand why they are, but they shouldn't be. And so I will always take an opportunity to advocate for non-English, primary English, because there is some English in Indian cinema, but non-primarily English cinema. I will always advocate for it where I can. So PK is my answer. However, if I wanted to be me and answer for a Western film, I would just say The Exorcist, because I think speaking of it being overrated, it has no reason and right to be controversial. I mean, other than the part where she masturbates with the cross, which I get it was a big deal, but another movie that didn't need any controversy to help it be successful. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
This one is I mean, The Exorcist specifically is one of those that obviously it got picketed because, of course, but it's so tame when you watch it back now, and it's like, man, life has changed, and then you watch other films that were controversial for other storylines around that time, and it's like, well, so little has changed, so how is this so controversial? Anyways, it again, it leads to weird discussions like that.
But the best thing, I mean, Exorcist has this beautiful dialogue between science and religion, right? Which it doesn't really, it kind of gets lost in the controversy, but like, that's a very eloquently like written, like there's the mother is like honestly trying both. Like, she doesn't know. She's just trying to help her daughter out. Right. It's like a sweet
and if not
story.
for the goddamn patriarchy, she would have been able to help, I mean,
damn it.
God. Man, talk about God, fuck, God damn.
Always stepping in and ruining things.
I know, right? It's like we had The Exorcist for how long and nobody made a sequel, and then we're just like, let's make a sequel. Like a real sequel. I'm not saying 2 and 3 aren't real sequels, but like in terms of what Exorcist Believer was trying to be, those aren't the same kind of sequel. God damn.
Anyways, I'm going to throw out my answer because I'm gonna share one that was actually kind of off-putting for me the first time I watched it, which I love talking about those types of films on this show. I watched Aronofsky's Mother for the first time and hated that movie.
Okay.
And for some reason, approaching it a couple years later, more separated from faith, more separated from my hometown where I'd grown up, sort of oppressed in my own ways due to my shitty family. But also the bigger thing is more understanding of cinema and the allegories that come through it. I appreciate this movie a whole hell of a lot more, and I understand why some people would hate it. But I think if you are experienced with film and you've never seen this, I think there's a lot to love about Aronofsky's Mother, and there's some things that are sort of up in the air, whether it's an allegory for the Christ story or whether it's the whole woo-woo spirituality of like Mother Earth type of story. But there's some things that are fairly explicitly about the actual story of Christ. And the way they depict it, I think that Aronofsky really pulled it off in this. And obviously the acting from the two leads is compelling from start to finish and terrifying in certain scenes and just really emotional through and through, whether that be the relief they feel in some scenes, the agony they feel in other scenes, and the spectrum that they live on during this entire film is just something that in itself is shows the accomplishments that they put on screen for this film.
I've never seen Mother.
It's a tough one to get into because a lot of people are off put by multiple things about it. A lot of people just plain hate Aronofsky. A lot of people hate Aronofsky. A lot of people hate Jennifer Lawrence too. That's sadly one of the other big ones. But
that's where I come in at it. That's why I've never seen it. I don't get it.
Have you watched the movies that she's actually like great in though, or have you watched the mainstream shit that she's known for?
Yes. Probably both. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've probably seen a handful of both. The acting stylings of Jennifer Lawrence just aren't something that I personally find compelling, but I understand why other people do. It's not like I don't get it. It's not like, why do people find her compelling? I don't know. Like, I get it. I totally get it. I guess at this point, Aronofsky being a stumbling block, I understand more. Just given the kinds of stuff that he normally makes, which is pretty broad, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just remember, like, he's one of these foundational sort of directors for me coming out of watching, like, whatever summer blockbuster came out and just being kind of wrecked by Requiem for a Dream. Just, like, seeing a needle go into an open, festering wound and the camera just holding and just being like, the fuck? And, like, just feeling that for, like, a day afterwards, just being like, that movie is heavy. So I kind of have a soft spot for him. I do want to see Mother, I guess. I haven't seen all of his movies, but the stuff he was doing when I was in college, which was like early 2000s, I have a soft spot for a lot of that kind of stuff, I guess, just because that's when I was like learning to love movies, I guess.
I like that you mentioned that because one of the things for him that I've always appreciated is he does not let his viewers off the hook. Mm-hmm. If he wants you to feel an emotion, you are going to feel the weight of that emotion no matter what. And he's done that even, through The Whale. There's so many different things that could have been like, I'm going to give you an out in this scene, but nope, we're going to let you, to steal your word, we're going to let you fester in it for a minute.
Oh, did he direct The Whale with Brendan Fraser?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. No, I maybe have 5% more interest in seeing it then.
Is that like from 0 to 5%?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And I love Brendan Fraser, but even I was like,
I mean, yeah, no, I hate to be, I mean, I'm sure it's great, but
and that's the problem, right? Like, I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it is. Like, right? Like, does me watching it need to confirm its greatness? Like, it's fine. Right? Like, I don't know. I don't want to be bummed out by Brendan Fraser in a fat suit for 2 hours. Like, is that okay to say as someone who watches film? Like, I don't want to actively put myself through the emotional ringer. I do a good job of it enough on my own daily. Like, I don't need a movie to do it for me.
That's the point of the show. We completely are anti-gatekeeping. If you don't want to watch a movie, don't watch it. Who cares?
That's my point. Like I said, like, if you don't want to, cool. Like, good. shouldn't feel bad for not wanting to watch Home Alone at Christmas time, okay?
Now, hold on. That would be an issue. No.
I've never seen Home Alone, just so you know.
Whoa.
Is it whoa?
I mean, I have no idea how to separate that from nostalgia. I can't answer that question.
See? That should be a fucking micro-genre. Films you can't separate from nostalgia. Because Home Alone...
Chris will come back to do that soon.
Yeah. Home Alone is like, I'm sure, up there for a lot of people. I wanted to mention one that none of us mentioned. But can we get a little love for Dan Brown? A little bit of love for the Da Vinci Code?
Never seen it.
Oh, wow. Well, you're not better off for it. I mean...
Well, I'm also not in the demographic at all.
Like dads?
Yeah, I was going to say, you kind of are, Ryan.
You kind of are, dog. Like,
if it came out now, sure. But it came out... When did that first one come out? Like 2006?
Yeah.
I was 19 riding on trains.
You were a daddy then, but not a dad.
I certainly was not that. I was a pudgy fuck.
Jesus!
There's a community for everyone, man.
Yeah, bro. You were a pudgy fuck that didn't want to watch Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. That's what you're saying. Okay, fine.
That's true. My dad was reading the book at the time, so it was just off-putting for me.
That's fair. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it was fucking unavoidable.
Yeah.
Like the book was. The book was so unavoidable that I used to have a close friend who we would make a joke anytime we would go to like a little library or to like a used bookstore, like, or Goodwill, like, fuck it, and Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code, always a copy, more than likely the hardcover even. So yeah, like The Da Vinci Code, another movie that like doesn't deserve to have any controversy around it because it's all based on, okay, anybody who thinks the Da Vinci Code's real, first off, it's not. Secondly, it's based off of bad information from 3 other ding-dongs who wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which is also a poorly researched book about nonsense. So, to your point, Chris, earlier about Dogma, like, the fucking, hey, idiots, did you watch the movie? Like, there's nothing here. Like, if anything, like, the movie is essentially saying, like, Jesus Christ existed. Like, isn't that what you assholes always wanted? Was somebody to go, Jesus existed. Okay, we all agree, right?
Yeah. The Da Vinci Code, isn't that... I had a crush on Audrey Tautou for a while after Amélie, and so I saw that movie. I think she's in that, right?
Yeah, it's also directed by Ron Howard.
That's awesome.
Actually, all 3 of the Dan Brown stories are directed by Ron Howard because apparently somebody he got locked in hard.
Is that part of the Grinch universe?
It all takes place on the same snowflake, actually. That's weird. And at the end, God damn it! Now I want this so bad. Dan Brown's the Grinchy Code. Yeah, that's what I want. Boy, Ron Howard, he's a man of many talents. He knows how to get great performances out of Jim Carrey and Tom Hanks's long hair in the Da Vinci Code. That was all. Speaking of controversial, that's the most controversial thing about that movie. Tom Hanks with long hair. Something that nobody asked for.
Until back here.
Yeah, nobody asked for that. That's the real controversy is Tom Hanks's hairpiece. Actually, what the funny thing with the Da Vinci Code is, like, the Da Vinci Code ultimately is just like boring Indiana Jones, like Indiana Jones for like even bigger nerds, because Indiana Jones in and of itself's kind of offensive. I mean, the first movie is about the Ark of the Covenant, the last movie is about the Holy Grail, and both of those are essentially MacGuffins, and both of those things actually have rather large places within the Christianity mythos, as it were. But hey, it's being trivialized by Harrison Ford blowing up Nazis with it. You know, that's what the Ark was made for. You can find controversy in fucking anything, is kind of my point. True. I mean, anything can be controversial, but to your point, Chris, this entire idea, people in the world of faith don't have a sense of humor.
I think Indiana Jones would get a B rating. I don't think it's a full C.
No, they would. How much would that Mormon movie cutting thing cut out of the movie? Like 5 minutes?
Much. Yeah.
10 minutes? Isn't it? It's used by the Mormons, isn't it? This is not me saying this. This is just reality.
No, they no pushback on that. I don't know if this is going too off topic, but you said something, Chris, that was kind of like central to my. God, that sounds so pretentious, but like central to my whole thesis here is this idea of reacting to something and kind of missing the point of it. And so Last Temptation of Christ, for me, that's the point of, that's like the one that started this whole kind of spiral for me, because the whole controversy is around, there's the story of the Christ. He goes up on the cross, and then he gets down, and he has like a life, and he marries Mary Magdalene, and they have kids, and like he gets caught up in like a suburban dad kind of life, and like he's miserable, and then the movie like swoops closed. He's back on the cross, and he's like, he sees the temptation in front of him, and he chooses to die. That's literally just like Christian dogma. Like, there's nothing controversial. Scorsese just showed temptation. Now, granted, he showed it for 30 minutes, so most people probably got bored. But like,
that's the real controversy right
that's
there.
The controversy,
the fucking boring movie. There were no Devo needle drops. That's the real problem with the
right.
Last
That's the
Temptation.
crime here. But if you actually watch it to the end, he shows a Christ figure who gets tempted and chooses to die, and it's a very humanizing way of like the struggle of somebody who is supposed to be partially human, right? And I remember seeing it and just being like, wow, that is so disappointing. Like, there's nothing controversial about this movie. And it's made out to be this one of the prime examples of like, oh wow, like the church picketed it, and they, I just don't think anyone saw it to the end because they got bored by the long kind of like dream sequence.
I mean, I think the real problem goes back to kind of the way things are consumed now. Things are consumed headline only, and not the actual content of whatever is being written. And to your point, like The Last Temptation of Christ is just telling the story. That's all it's doing. I mean, it's telling the story of what if the human side of Jesus Christ won out? What would that have looked like, as opposed to the side who, again, felt obligated to die, which
right.
Again, like, to your point, like, even as someone who is very spiritual but not religious, that's a hard concept to grapple with here, just sitting and thinking about it for 2 seconds, because I wouldn't die for podcasting. Let's put it that way. Like, I've never found anything in my life that I would be like, I'd be okay dying for this idea or concept. And to get to that point and to have that conversation openly about Jesus is, I don't know why that's controversial. It's just nobody's having that conversation, and somebody wanted to. I'm glad it was in the hands of Martin Scorsese and not, I don't know, throw out any number of people that could have directed it poorly. Jesus H. Christ. Rennie Harlan. I'm glad it wasn't a Rennie Harlan movie.
Rennie Harlan.
Can you imagine that? Last Temptation of Christ as directed by Rennie Harlan.
Oh boy.
God.
How many Die Hard sequels did he do? 2? 1?
2? 2? 1? No, 2. He did the second one. And the third, did he do the third one too?
I don't know. It was McTiernan and then Harlan, but I don't know what happens after that.
Christ hard. I mean, again, like that is what would be offensive now, is like doing something ridiculous, like Book of Mormon. I mean, even the Mormon church had to respond to the Book of Mormon, and they were like, yeah, they're kind of right. Like, that was essentially their whole statement, is like, they're not wrong. We can actually laugh at ourselves. Like, the Mormons can at least laugh at themselves. Unlike the Scientologists. I mean, speaking of a bunch of groups of people that aren't, I mean, we didn't mention Going Clear, Battlefield Earth, but, there you go. They got mentioned. You're welcome. Isn't that sacrilege for Scientologists? Like, Battlefield Earth is a bad movie. It's a poor example of everything that they believe. Isn't Battlefield Earth like about what they believe in? It is, right? Like, this isn't me grasping at straws they do.
It's very tied to there.
Yeah, so like that's probably bad for them because it's a terrible movie.
Dude, I saw. I'm a big fan of South Park growing up, and my wife and I happened to be in New York the opening like season or whatever of Book of Mormon, and I was like, we're going, and I was like, we got tickets that were like if you imagine the theater, it had like a pillar kind of on the side of both sides, and there were seats that were half behind the pillar. And they were 180 each. And we were like not in a position to afford that early in our careers. But I was like, we're doing it. So we got to see it the first like run. I don't know if I've ever laughed harder in a musical like that. Just so I don't know, man. That movie, that production is amazing. And I was stunned the Mormon Church kind of supported it in a way of being like, Yeah, I mean, it's, they go a little far, but it's funny because there's messed up stuff in there.
Well, and they lambast the Mormon Church directly. Like,
Yeah.
the Catholic Church, sometimes they're not even being addressed directly, and they find a way to be like offended. And it's like, guys, like, what are you doing when you're not being offended? Like, don't answer that. We already know 5%. We found out. We know. Like, we know what you're doing when you're not doing. Like, I'm not saying that's what they're doing, but Spotlight's a movie you can go and watch with Shrek on stage's own Brian Darcy James.
What a deep reference there.
I know.
We're kind of already getting into it, and this is already shaping up to be our longest episode ever. So let's dive into our third question.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
What, Chris, do you think is the biggest impact that this topic has had on pop culture as a whole? Now, again, this doesn't have to be like a specific title. It can be something philosophical, but I have a feeling that you've got an actual answer for this one.
No, I mean, I think actually, I think we've been kind of dancing around it and maybe even to some point talking about it directly, but I just think this is the earliest example that I can think of. Probably race would be another one that's up there, of a topic that requires nuance, where nuance was not allowed into the discussion. And for me, that's a shame because, I happen to not grow up in the U.S. So as part of that upbringing, I had friends from different cultures, and we ragged on them for being from different countries constantly. Like my Indian friends, I reminded them they were Indian every day and like made fun of them ruthlessly for it. But there was zero malice in it. Like these were like my best friends. Like I would die for them. And they made fun of me for being a stupid American. And like they were right. Like I was the dumbest one in the group. And like, so coming back to the US in college and like seeing, I remember I made good friends with this guy from Mexico, and I started ragging on him for being Mexican in Texas. And he was like, yo, like, you can't do that. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Why? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm obviously like, we're friends, right? I was just saying, you stink and stuff like whatever. Like, I was just like, whatever. I was just being like, and he was
the usual,
and he was like, no. Like, you can't, like, what do you like? So he explained racism to me.
And that was the day that you learned what racism was, huh?
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, I've been doing that for years.
This is one of the great stories I've ever heard. Just, my God, where did you grow up that racism where no one saw the color of each other's skin? Did you grow up
it
in
was
the
absolutely
dark?
racism. It just looked different. I grew up in Indonesia, right? And
okay,
in
interesting.
Indonesia, if you're Indonesian, you like hate the Chinese. It's like not in the funny way. It's like, and it like they attack Chinese-owned business.
I mean, as opposed to people who hate Chinese for the funny reasons because they put MSG in their food, right? Like, has nothing to do with the constant oppressive regime that they're under over there, right? That has nothing to do with it.
I love that you just brought up the MSG thing because I just taught my wife why that was racist like last week.
Yeah, and people still fucking think it too, which is like, hey, everybody, like, who came up with that? White people. You know why? Because they were scared of food that tasted like something, apparently. I don't know what it is. Oh, this food tastes good. There must be something about it that they're doing to it that makes it taste that way.
Yeah, MSG is good. If there's one takeaway from this episode, MSG is amazing.
Yeah.
But no, there was certainly racism, of course. But like, there was just a more comfort in like, mixing races, and like there wasn't that same like 300 years of institutional oppression that made a casual joke about black people in America like not funny. Just like like if I tell it, just fundamentally like not funny. But like that's what I had to kind of like catch up on. I was like, no, like Texas and Mexico is not like friendly like all the time. You can't just like be so casual with that kind of stuff. That's sort of what I just kind of got caught up on some of the history. How was that related to anything we were talking about? Whatever. I was racist until I was 22. I probably still am.
By the way, Chris is 23 and a half.
Yeah, how old are you?
So yeah, this again can have many, many, many different answers, and it can have many different ways to interpret this question in regards to controversial films of faith. I think what I'm going to bring up here is I think that the subgenre as a whole that we made up tonight has sort of banded together to help subvert the feelings of a lot of people that were raised in our generation and have started to make people question things about their life. And it's not, most of the time, a movie is not the sole inspiration for questioning some of these things, but there's movies like Jesus Camp that made a lot of people go, oh, I'm religious and I'm watching this and this is crazy. How do people do this? And somebody next to them goes, I felt the same way going to your church. And they go, whoa, that makes me feel super weird. Yeah. And suddenly somebody's questioning something because they saw it through somebody else's perspective. Yeah. And the crazy thing, that's how I have fallen in love with movies. Like, there's so many things that I never would have been able to experience without films. It's my passport around the world to be able to celebrate cultures through cinema that I never would have been able to see because I'm poor. And so it's a way for me to appreciate beliefs and cultures and feelings and adventures that other people can feel. And when you're talking about in terms of spirituality, 100%, you are literally boring into something that is so deep within somebody that if they start to question it, you are absolutely changing their life. Yeah. And so the way that I'm going to say this has affected pop culture, I think that quite a few of these have likely played a pretty big part in some people questioning their beliefs and seeing our generation make an about face away from the church and to things like science and good karma and just finding a way to leave the planet a better place than we found it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I silenced them.
the movie that comes to mind when you talk about that is Monty Python's Life of Brian.
Yes.
Like, it's just the behind the scenes, the commentary for that is really interesting. And like the behind the scenes where they talk about them prepping for that. Because they went to Morocco and just got stoned for like 6 weeks. But like they read the Bible like deeply.
Stone. What kind of stone are we talking about here?
We're talking religion. You got to define this.
Yeah, you got to make sure.
Or New Testament. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, right. Old Testament only, baby. I like it when they do the corporal stuff. It's when you really know that they're not fucking around.
This is when it turns into a kink episode.
Kink.com? The armory in San Francisco, is that what you're talking about? Kink? Okay. Favorite kink movies? Well, no, I'm just kidding.
That will be an episode of the future, I bet.
Yeah, there's too many for me to pick.
Yeah. But they knew what they were talking about. Like, they researched a lot of, like, so that movie is both funny, but also if you're coming to it as a Christian, it's like, oh, they really understand this. Like, they're not sort of just lampooning it. I mean, they are, but coming from a place of, like, deep knowledge of it, which is different, which is more comforting, I think, in a way, because you're laughing from like a place of being known as opposed to like an outsider kind of coming in and laughing at you. And so I think that's one movie, when you just said that, that's one movie that jumps to mind that really does a good job of that, of making like film discussion about some of the crazy stuff that happens in this text feel like safe.
That's true. I agree. So I guess my answer I think is kind of similar to what y'all have kind of alluded to, which is not to get deeply personal, but this is going to sound weird, but for someone who watches a lot of cinema, movies don't really get me in terms of like a real emotional response. The thing that does is music for me. Music, I can hear a song and just boom, it'll like shut me down completely. So cinema doesn't have that effect on me personally, but my answer to this question is taking into account for a lot of people, I know it does, the transformative nature of cinema can allow you to actually change the way you feel about something that so many people for so long never even questioned, never even had the idea that that could possibly not be the way things are. Yeah. And to your point, Ryan, and to your point, Chris, what has allowed us to do that? Bullshit, making shit up. And that's because we're making shit up to make shit up to explain the shit that we've already made up to explain that shit. How many more things do we have to make up to explain things we already made up? Right. That is cinema talking about religion because it's made up shit talking about made up shit. Yeah. And that's kind of a weird thing, But those things are more transformative than anything else is. And I would go as far as to say, look, if we want to say the Bible is 5% real and 95% homilies and anecdotes and all sorts of just moral nonsense that is comforting for some people to get involved in, that is a fictional text. And so the things that are talking about it are just talking about a fictional text fictionally, because again, we're not sure the veracity of any of the Bible outside of someone named Jesus Christ probably existed, but plenty of people probably had a name like that or similar to that. So again, it just comes down to this idea of the transformative nature of media can transform you into a believer, but it can also transform you away from it in a different direction.
Right.
And I don't know what other things can do that. Like, I don't really, having conversations with people is one thing, but for some people, myself included, like engaging with media can feel what some people might call a religious experience. I wouldn't call it that because it's more just making me feel a certain way, but I'm pretty sure that's what religious experiences are, feeling a certain way about something that maybe you wouldn't feel a certain way about otherwise because you haven't ascribed meaning to it. And, I've said this before on other podcasts, I'll say it here. I kind of wish that we just prayed to J.R.R. Tolkien's The Silmarillion as the Bible, as opposed to the Bible being the Bible, because it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more interesting. There's a lot more stuff going on that is actively exciting. And it also doesn't talk about subjugating people that exist now, because it's all about people that don't exist anymore. And, oh, wait, that is what the Bible's doing. So it's really hard for me to sit and talk to people that are like hardcore right-wing, like conservative Christians, because they want to believe the religion veracity of the Bible is 1-to-1. And if we can't even get past that, like, we're going to have a hard time. But stuff like movies and TV shows and music help erode that away and make people more amenable. So it's really, for me, the transformative nature of the medium, which in this case is film.
There's a story, Ryan, you shared this publicly, so I hope you don't mind if I bring it up. But there's a story about Ryan breaking away from a flat Earth philosophy growing up that really jumps out to me. Wasn't it flat Earth that your dad had?
Was the fact that the moon landing was fake.
Moon landing was fake.
It was faked.
And like the process of separating from family belief. That story always stuck out to me from when you told it, even if I had the action rod. But like that idea that you had this deeply held kind of family belief that you had to find your own way out of. There's another story that comes to mind about how people have been putting textbooks inside Minecraft for countries that don't allow textbooks. So you can play Minecraft and like you can unlock like certain worlds that allow you to research, find certain books, and they're passing literature and things through in banned countries. And I think that's the beauty of kind of cinema, if we're going to talk about it in this lens, is you get as the more movies you watch, you get the benefit of like all the education that every screenwriter has ever had. And they might posit like a certain idea and you're like, you don't even get it at first. And then you watch something 3 years later and you have this moment of like, wait a minute, that's what they were talking about? Oh, hell yeah. Then you go back and it sends you down a rabbit hole. So, like it forces you to just like see the world differently, right? Which I think we all need and needs to be a constant thing, because the more we get stuck in what we already know, we just become boring or we become Republican.
Maybe it's a complacency thing, like being okay with complacency. I don't know, like filmmakers, when they get complacent, make things like Ready Player One and Bridge of Spies. Like you become complacent as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the consumption of media in this day and age kind of relies on complacency to rewatch the things you've seen a million times, and don't go watch anything new, because if you were to go watch something new, it might actually challenge your preconceived notions on things. And you know what's not going to? Watching The Office for the 5th time all the way through. It's not going to challenge anything. Right. And I know people don't want to be challenged all the time, but pushing yourself to consume media that asks more of you as a viewer is important for me. And I'm not saying it should be important for everybody, but I think challenging yourself while engaging with something on the level that it wants to engage on it with you is important. And that's why the three of us do what we do collectively together right now, but also separately in our creative endeavors, because we want more people to engage with this creative medium of film. And it can literally change the way you perceive religion, which again, to my point from before, cavemen were talking about hundreds of thousands of years ago, trying to explain why the sun was up in the fucking sky. And they started concocting religion from that question alone. Why does water run downhill? Why is the sun rise in the morning and then the moon comes up at night? Those were questions that had religious meaning ascribed to them, and now has continued to create. I mean, I'm not going to say we have Joel Osteen because a caveman asked why the sun is high in the sky, but I mean, there is a correlation that can be drawn from point A to point, triple D, whatever it would be.
Some would say he hasn't, evolved much from the intelligence of the caveman, but that's a separate discussion. We asked about foundational movies. This just reminds me, the way you phrased that, Haskell is probably a really good one to bring into this as well. Yep. That's one that I would point people to as well, because even though it's a silent film, it's almost more of like a documentary in a lot, like documentary plus reenactment, and it questions a lot of the views and like opinions on witchcraft throughout the ages. Obviously, religion's tightly associated with all of that, so they're very tightly kind of connected. But that came out before Ordet, so maybe Haskell is the answer I choose for my question number one, the more I think about it.
Well, as we talked about broadening everybody's horizons, let's get to our fourth question here, because, again, a lot of what we want to do through the show, but specifically through this conversation tonight, is to make you, make you feel inspired to check out something new that you may not have chosen to before. So our fourth question, as always, is what is a cinematic bridge to our topic in your mind? So basically, what is something that if somebody's already interested in it would clue them into the fact that they may be interested in watching these types of films?
There's a movie that came out, Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Oh, love that movie.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to use that as an example, and it's a weird one to tie in, but I think there's a way to watch that movie where you're not really thinking too much about it, and you're just sort of being like, what the hell is happening? Like the loud music and like people are yelling all the time and it doesn't make sense, and you're kind of rejecting like what's on the screen because it just doesn't fit into something you've like seen before, or like, whatever. And I think if you tend to watch movies like that in that way of saying, I don't understand what's going on, I'm just going to shut this down and say this movie is dog shit, and go write like a 3-word quip on Letterboxd about it. That's the opposite of kind of what we're talking about here, right? I think we've talked about music a little bit tonight. There used to be this thing in old CDs where it would list out like similar bands, and it wouldn't say here's similar bands, but it would say thank you, and it would say thank you to like 12 bands, and then you could go on a rabbit hole and go find those bands. And I think if you're the kind of person that watches Bodies, Bodies, Bodies and wants to go learn about slasher movies and understand like the commentary on slasher movies, or you listen to music and you want to go understand the influence on that, if you have that kind of curiosity and you're open to saying like not only what was immediately being said like on that kind of first level, but then go a level down and being like, what was this referring to? What was the influence on this? Why does this movie exist? Like what led to like this movie existing? To me, that's the cinematic bridge to get down to being able to be intellectually curious enough about yourself to then go into a topic like this and view other people's reaction to their experience with faith and the things they liked and didn't like, and the critiques and the things that, whatever, like kind of to bring it all together into making like a nuanced conversation, as much as I've said that word tonight. But that's one thing for me.
It's a good choice. It's also, it's important to have nuanced conversation about many of these things. So nothing wrong with that. The one thing that's been in my mind all night, like since before we started recording, is how much watching some of these films to me now feels surreal, which is going to be my answer here. Is if you are fans of surrealist films, if you're a Jodorowsky fan, if you are a fan of Boots Riley, there's so many things that you can go from some of the oldest filmmakers to some of the newest filmmakers, that if you're a fan of some of these things that bridge this weird, connection between the real and the fantasy, and you get this weird uncanny valley of a film that you feel at home in, I bet you would like a lot of these, because it gives you that sort of what is real, what is supernatural, what is fantastical feeling as you're going through these. And even the thing that we talked about, like Jesus Camp, where it's a literal nonfiction documentary, to many people that have never been in that situation, it will feel surreal to watch them and be like, what the fuck? This is crazy. So it feels sort of demeaning to answer like this, and I mean it with the utmost respect. But if you're somebody that likes surrealist films, I bet going down a rabbit hole of controversial religious films will probably make you feel a little fulfilled at the end of the day.
Yep.
Mr. Stashew.
Well, the good answers were already taken, so I don't know how to answer at this point. No, I'm kidding. I think maybe to kind of tie both of y'all's into mine, and again, not that my answer is somehow more creative, but again, I think it's just that I'm walking down the same path that y'all are. You just started a little earlier than I did. I think in terms of like being willing to be open to watching movies that on the face of it are not what they seem. I mean, I don't know how you would put that any other way than like someone like a Terrence Malick or a Jodorowsky or an Aronofsky or a Cronenberg or a Kubrick or a Lars von Trier. So many of these directors are operating both. Fuck was that shit? Oh, did you scare yourself? Sorry, my cat scared himself underneath my desk. Those filmmakers, they spend a lot of time with the subtext in the movie and making sure that you as a film goer can somewhat engage with the subtext easily, but it's more for those who are going to sit and rewatch the movie and pick it apart and ask themselves, what did that mean? And not only what did it mean, but what is the filmmaker trying to get at, and what are they trying to convey to me, and what is the screenwriter trying to convey to me? Because sometimes screenwriter and director are not the same person, more times often than not. And again, Passion of the Christ is a movie that is directed by Mel Gibson about the crucifixion and torture of Jesus. It's not a movie I want to watch for a number of reasons. I understand why other people want to watch it and engage with it at the level that it asks to engage with it as an audience member. I have no interest in that, but I know plenty of people that do, and I know that there is a part of certain people that are religious that ask themselves, what would that look like if I got to see it? And I think that those are the people that when we talk about this kind of question and the kind of answer here, I think if you're amenable to asking questions about what you're watching and the intent behind it, you're going to find something of value in controversial films of faith. But again, they're controversial only because they're wanting to have a dialogue about things that we should be having a dialogue about. It's an uncomfortable. Nobody wants to have the uncomfortable questions. That's why people don't go to therapy. That's why people don't do a lot of things. That's why people are in religion their entire lives, even if they're gay, and they don't want to ever come out because they're afraid of all these terrible things happening. And a lot of it's real and a lot of it's perceived. But I think if you're the kind of person who's willing to ask more of the things that you listen or watch or engage with, so an active listener, I think that these are the movies for you. But to be fair, I think that you're already listening to this if you're that person, because we're not engaging with films on a surface level. I don't think any one of us is on what we're doing here or what we're doing separately. And so many people, that's what they want. And they kind of get put off by when they listen to something like what you do, Ryan, or what I do, or what you do, Chris, which is people engaging with something in a way that's not just regurgitating the goddamn movie. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that are like, I wish you would talk more about the movie on the thing that you do. And it's like, I'm not going to tell you the plot of the movie. Like, you should have come in with it watched. Or if you're not having it watched, this is trying to sell you on it. So I'm not going to just tell you beat for beat what happened in the movie. I want you to engage with the movie the way I'm engaging with it. Yeah. And if you're not able to do that yet, let's figure out if that's something you actively are interested in. And if you're not, don't tell me what I'm doing isn't what you like, because you weren't interested anyways, is my point. Yeah. And so that's the thing. Like, if you're going to sit and watch, here, I'll do it, Ryan, you're welcome. If you're interested in only watching MCU movies, and that's the kind of stuff that you watch, and you watch nothing else, and you're not engaging with your media any deeper than that, these movies are not going to be for you. But if you want more from the things that you consume, these movies will be for you. But I think that kind of goes for any sort of controversial films in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's very well said. You know, we're in a culture right now that's actively banning books again. And
fun, isn't it fun? I'm waiting for them to burn them again. That's what I'm really waiting for.
I know, right? And they'll have different color armbands this time. But it's just, you know, it's weird that it's controversial now to be somebody who wants to learn. And a lot of the books that they're banning, like I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. There's a school district that's banning Where the Wild Things Are. Literally, how? Like, there's barely any words in that book.
Man and beast living together. The Bible says it's unclean. You know it.
I guess so, yeah.
Man shall not lie with beast.
It says it. You know, I want the world to be a place where you read that and then you make a decision on whether or not you're into it, right? That's kind of it, right? Like, it's way simple. We make it so much more complicated. Like, if there's a book that has wild rape of something and you're not into rape, like, don't read that book, but don't ban it. Like, you know what I mean? Anyways, that's kind of a weird example to use, but
I'd like to read that version of Where the Wild Things Are, to be honest with you, boy.
Ken Russell version.
Yeah, boy, where he didn't live long enough to make that. That's on the Ken Russell Unrealized Projects page.
The fan fiction.
Yeah, all of a sudden,
the uncut version of the Devils.
Yeah, boy, we'll find out how many of them are cut by the end of it. I like that we've made that joke several times on this podcast, and it wasn't just me doing it. Ryan did it on an episode of the show a couple times ago, talking about cut and uncut. What the fuck is going on? Why is that? Why is that in soaking getting mentioned in this episode? That's not very Christian of us, you know.
Yes.
If people are listening to this and think we're Christian, boy, I got some swampland in Florida to sell you.
Anyways, this has been enlightening on multiple levels. Chris, you are fantastic. Once again, can you share where people could find you on this wonderful internet that makes people enraged enough to ban books?
You know, funny enough, I was just thinking about this today. We've done everything wrong as far as promoting ourselves. So right now we are, wherever you podcast, you can find us through the wonderful Something Weird Productions. We have a Spreaker page. So if you're interested in going to Spreaker and searching and They Live by Film, that's one way to find us. Otherwise, wherever you podcast, we should be there under They Live by Film. I mean, someone's favorite productions.
Thank you. I was gonna. You threw out Something Weird Productions, and it's
kind of put
Chris
the two
and I
together.
just made a company.
So. Yeah, you just did it. You did it. There you go.
I think Lisa might have something to say about that. Lisa Petrucci. Someone's favorite productions. We have, yeah. No, I mean, you know, I'm on Instagram, and I think it's called Personal History. And I'm on Reddit.
Personal History of Film, by the way.
Personal History of Film, thank you. Reddit is where I spend most of my time. Personal History of Film. No, View to a Thrill on Reddit. View to a Thrill on Reddit, which was a name I made thinking I was being clever, making a Bond pun, which didn't age.
I thought it was funny.
Thank you.
Is that your favorite James Bond movie too?
No.
Wow. Well, now I'm disappointed. Speaking of Nazis.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. But I spent a lot of my time on Reddit and Letterboxd. That's where I write. I used to write 350 reviews a year. It's slowed down a lot. I might hit 200 this year if I push, but I like to write. So I'm happy to chat with any of y'all that have made it this far in the episode and would like to engage. I'm always game.
How about you, Nebraska Chris? You want to share with us?
Nebraska. Got to put the R at the end, buddy. Yeah, you can find me at weirdingwaymedia.com, where everything I work on, other than the James Bond podcast that we do once a month with Mike White and Richard Haddam, the three of us over on Patreon, both mine and Mike White's, do a monthly Bond thing where we sit and jaw about James Bond for an hour and a half, depending on how long the conversation or the alcohol lasts. And yeah, that's where you can find all the things that I do. What about you, Ryan Verrill?
I am everywhere under the name The Disconnected. I've got physical media on the brain at all times. If you'd like, I've got a magazine you can check out called The Physical Media Advocate. It's available on Amazon in both digital and print versions, available in a handful of retail stores. But beyond that, just come hang out. I do a live show every Thursday night going over all the physical media announcements, and we talk about movies for a spell. It's a good time, just like tonight has been. Chris, you've been fantastic. Other Chris, you've been pretty great as usual.
Don't clarify which one either. That's the fun part.
That was the point. This conversation could have gone in a lot of different directions, and if we said, hey, there was an error in recording, let's do it again, it would have ended up completely differently, and that's why I love topics like this. When we talk about micro genres, I'm always excited to see where our conversation is going to go, and it did not disappoint. So I think you picked wonderfully. Thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you for having me. What a fun conversation, and great to spend some time with you.
Well, as usual, we hope you check out our next episode and that you continue to push your boundaries of your interests in film. Until next time.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.